I am excited to be here with the New Jersey Teacher of the Year, RCSJ GRAD Angel Santiago. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to talking to you.
Let's start in a big way. This honor took you from the classroom to the White House. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, it was exciting. Due to COVID, we weren't too sure if we were going to get that opportunity. But one of the perks of being a New Jersey State Teacher of the Year is a visit to the White House. And it was a great experience to meet the president, and more importantly, his wife, our first lady, Dr. Jill Biden, who herself is an educator and an educator from Southern New Jersey at that. So, it was a great honor to be invited by her, to be able to meet the president, to be able to meet the Secretary of Education, Mr. Miguel Cardona, who, is a Puerto Rican elementary school teacher from Connecticut. For me, it was really cool to see someone of that stature. The whole week for Washington consisted around some professional development with the Smithsonian Institute, as well as a visit to the White House that we just discussed. But more importantly, we were given the opportunity to go to our senators and meet with our senators and our representatives on issues facing education. And we had the distinct pleasure and honor to visit with Representative Donald Norcross, who actually took us into the Capitol building, which was an experience in itself. So those were two of the things where I think being State Teacher of the Year, where I would never forget being able to be at the South Lawn in the White House, but more importantly, 6 months after the events of January 6th, to be invited formally into the Capitol building with a representative on a good term basis, fighting for education. That's something I'll never forget, and something that I think, I look forward to possibly be pursuing in the future. So yeah, the whole Washington week was, it was inspirational.
You were also recognized at the NJEA Convention. What was that like?
So to be recognized, when we talk about New Jersey, you're talking about the top tier education within our entire country, voted year in and year out as being top 5, top 2, top 1 when it comes to education. So being in front of your members from North Jersey to South Jersey, being recognized as a leader and an honored educator in a profession where almost any one of the teachers that I've ever worked with could be an honored educator. That's something special, because I don't care what honored educator you are, you didn't get to the position without the help of your colleagues, without the professional development from complete strangers from another side of the state, helping you become a better teacher. So, in addition to being honored and recognized, I also recognize that I was at a position as State Teacher of the Year where I've learned so much the past year that I had to give back. So in addition to being recognized, I also held 2 courses during our convention, one on anti-implicit bias and the other on the ACEs awareness campaign, which is a new campaign that has been launched in New Jersey. And it was, it was an experience. This was the first time I actually gave professional development for the NJEA and at the convention itself. But like I said before, to be honored in front of your colleagues, past State Teachers of the Year, our newest State Teacher of the Year, who I got to share this honor with side by side, it's an experience like no other. In addition, we got to share the stage with Governor Phil Murphy, with our new president, Sean Spiller, who is himself breaking boundaries and breaking glass ceilings. It was truly special to be a part of that. On top of a year where we were actually back in person after spending so much time virtually, and we know that teachers have given their all this year, and it was a pleasure and an honor to represent teaching in a time where the world truly got to see how important teachers are.
It's clear from this honor that you are an amazing teacher, but you didn't follow the traditional path to this career. Tell us about your journey to becoming a teacher.
It's extremely important because, Rowan College of South Jersey, especially the Violin campus, before it was called Rowan College of South Jersey, It was Cumberland County College. They still had partnerships with Rowan, but the traditional route for some, it works, right? But for others, it doesn't. And I was one of those other. I was categorized as other. And the more and more I talk to other state teachers, they have similar stories where they had another career and then came into teaching and pursued teaching in an untraditional manner. And so I took several years off. After high school, I went on tour. I was a musician for several years, which was an experience in its own. I was able to see every corner of this country, and that was a great experience that I would never trade. But when that was all done, I knew I wanted to come back home, do what I needed to do to become a teacher. And part of that, coming back home at 26, I was an adult. So I didn't get any of the benefits of living at home with my mother anymore and trying to do the college route that way. So I was a 26-year-old freshman in community college, working full time and taking night courses, but still having a full course load, 20 some credits per market period, 12 credits per market period. It depended on how much, I could take. And I went that route, and I want others to understand that, especially those who are thinking about switching careers, or those who are just out of high school but are not quite sure what they want to do. They want to make some money. You can do it. You can take the night courses. You can, depending upon your family situation, the community college route offers another avenue to pursue something that you think, a career that you think belongs to you, that you want to be a part of. And teaching was that career for me. So as I was working full time, I was still taking education courses, got my associate's degree, went to a partner program in Fairleigh Dickinson University, and pursued my educational career that way. Went through the master's. It was like a master's. It was a 3 years in one program. Got my master's degree in education, in elementary education, and a bachelor's in humanities, and was able to find employment quite quickly. And the rest is history. I've been in the classroom for 10 years and counting. And I think a lot of the lessons that I learned on how to budget time and time management, and being able to take on a workload that might deter others, was taught to me by working full time and going to those night classes. I was taught to me by the experience of going to a community college. And I think for that reason, I was better prepared to be successful in education, because as we know, education is a very stressful job, right? It's a very demanding job. But I think, that route that I chose prepared me to be a successful educator. So, like untraditional route, but it was a successful route nonetheless.
You are a graduate of Cumberland campus when it was Cumberland County College, and your mother earned a degree there as well. How was that experience?
It's crazy. I think back about it a little emotionally, right? Because my mom was the second person in my entire family. We are, my family's from Puerto Rico. I'm third generation. She's second generation. She was born in New Jersey, but we didn't have many opportunities growing up, especially her, to go to college. It wasn't something that was in the cards for many of her friends. And so she went straight into the workforce at 17 with a 1-year-old, So, to some extent, I grew up with my mom. When she decided to go back to college in her mid-20s, just like myself, she invited me along with her, and her professors were so accepting. And we talk about equity and knowing and meeting your students where they are. Her professors understood that, so much so that, they allowed me to participate in some of the courses. I remember Mr. Johnson, who was a psychology teacher for my mother. 20 years down the line, he was my psychology teacher at Cumberland County. Senor Munsik, who was her Spanish 1 teacher, was my high school Spanish 1 teacher. And so it was, an experience like no other. It was almost like a community experience. It was an extension for me of, the public school system. And the fact of the matter is that we got, we had a world-class institution, world-class education with professors who weren't far removed from the K-12 setting, which is great, which I think is great because they understand how education works. It was great because they knew where their students were coming from. They worked with their students. They knew the lives of their students, and it was a great experience for me to be a part of that. Not only growing up as a kid and seeing my mom as she graduated with her associates in sociology, but then following her footsteps, 2 decades later, and getting my associates in elementary education and continuing to pursue that. I had a great teacher. I had a great role model, my mother, and that's an experience that her and I share. And she couldn't be more proud. And I remember going to her graduation, just like she remembered going to mine, right there in the parking lot of Cumberland County campus.
As part of your honor, you were able to take a 6-month sabbatical to work with the New Jersey State Department of Education. Tell us about that experience and what you were able to accomplish.
I'm not sure you folks have enough time for me, but we'll try to condense this as much as we can. I would say the last 6 months from January 2021 through June 2021 and beyond, because we have a philosophy: when you become a state teacher, you're always a state teacher. You always have the responsibility of pursuing and furthering your platform, because for most of us, it's something that is going to progressively get better through time. And so, I went about the sabbatical looking for areas in which I felt very strongly about. And one of those areas was, how can we recruit more teachers of color, more people of color into the profession of education? The fact of the matter is that, in a state where 56% of the population of students are students of color, only 18% represent of the teaching population represent teachers of color. And you are grouping together Latino, Latinx, Latine, you're grouping together African American, Muslim, Asian, all fit into that 18%. So I wanted to really work with an office that embodied the same message. And lo and behold, I knew that New Jersey was very progressive. New Jersey does really well in that area, but we still have a lot of work to do. And so there was an opportunity to work with the Office of Recruitment, Preparation, and Induction. I worked with some great people. I worked with a nonprofit organization called the New Teacher Project. And we worked with the EPPs, or Education Professional Prep Professionals here in the state, which are the colleges that have educational programs, just really understanding the data behind their completers, their new service professionals, and who's completing their programs, the demographics, and why, and really trying to figure out and digging deeper into how can we start to have the conversation, share our information, share what works, share what doesn't work, in furthering the completion of new service professionals when it comes to teaching. And because this is, across the board throughout the country, this is something that we just don't see many people of color going into the profession of teaching. So it was great to work with the New Teacher Project and furthering that goal and that message. In addition, I got to work with the newly established Office of Resilience, which was a culmination of different institutions: the health institution, the community service institution, all finding, getting out the message that ACEs, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, that ACEs affect our kids physically and emotionally, and for years after their time with us as educational professionals. And the importance of how one positive adult can change the trajectory of someone's life, not only emotionally, not only psychologically, but more importantly, physically. And we're talking about ailments such as cancer, diabetes, that all stem from ACEs. How us as teachers can mitigate those effects of ACEs, because we are present in our kids' lives very early in their development as human beings. So a teacher's role is extremely pivotal in mitigating those ACEs, which is a health concern. I was able to talk to the Center of Disease Control about this issue as a representative of the teaching profession, which was an honor in itself. And so, I worked with the Burke Foundation, the Office of Resilience, and getting that message out to our teachers, to our police officers, to our healthcare professionals on how this is going to be a cumulative effort in addressing this matter. In addition, I worked with the Department of Education, highlighting social emotional learning and how important it is and how we should celebrate that across the state. And it's been, this whole ride has been great. I've worked with NJEA on various projects. It's been an amazing experience. I've grown immensely professionally and educationally. So I almost say this is almost like an extra college course on how to be a teacher. So
the past few years have been especially challenging for teachers. How have you adapted?
Many teachers had their routines and procedures before. A lot of us stuck with what we were comfortable with. Fortunately, though, I did have some kind of understanding that this world was moving into a digital format. So I was at the point where I wasn't making copies anymore. We were doing things digitally before the pandemic. And so I was a little bit more prepared, I think, than some people, because I'm a huge advocate for, conserving our environment, not making extra waste. So the whole copy thing was not something I was, unless I really needed to do it, I would do it. But, I was one step ahead. Navigating, becoming a content creator, that stuff I started to learn on the fly. Hence, you have a microphone in front of me right now, because, our teachers had to become content creators, right? They were making YouTube video clips. They were doing small lessons online using Screencastify. But I think what really helped me was that the one benefit from this COVID experience was my professional groups expanded exponentially. So I started joining Facebook groups dedicated to sharing information and sharing resources on how to navigate remote teaching. I jumped on TikTok and I was getting a minute PDs from great teachers, young teachers, novice teachers, who I love working with novice teachers because they are so up to date on the pulse of pop culture, on technology. I was learning from them on, like I said, mediums like TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And so, that really helped me get past my limitations. It broadened my horizons. I was able to learn a lot of stuff. And a lot of that I brought to the classroom this year. Even though we are in our classrooms, we still have a hybrid type learning experience here. We still have some kids who are in quarantine, who we still need to teach. And so, the lessons of the last year, something that I worked with in NJEA as well with the REL, which is the Regional Educational Laboratory, was really trying to figure out, okay, what worked last year that we can bring into our classrooms, even when we go back in person. And, God forbid that we go back into remote learning. How can we be more prepared than we were when this first started? And so, really expanding the professional networks, using the internet to seek out free professional development. It was everywhere because everyone was in the same boat. And we used empathy, and our colleagues really, no one was trying to capitalize on it. Everyone was giving away things for free. And we know that this profession relies on the philosophy that sometimes you need to beg, borrow, and steal, right? And we openly do that for our colleagues because we knew what position they were in. So that's how I kind of got through the last year. And in response, I was able to share what I had to my colleagues as well.
What are your hopes for the future?
Oh, there are so many. There are so many. I think, after this past year, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a roller coaster for our teachers. At one point in the pandemic, we were hailed as heroes. And then it seems like almost overnight, the world told us to get back to work as if we weren't working. And I think that wasn't further the truth. Actually, you could talk to many teachers. We were probably working harder during remote learning because There was no off time. There was no clock in, clock out. You were on all the time, whether it be 8 o'clock at night, calling parents to make sure their kids are on class the next day. So I think that was difficult. And then you see a lot of districts right now are in contract negotiations, and it almost seemed like last year didn't count. And so a lot of our teachers are really fighting for what they think is fair, fair compensation. And I was lucky enough to join with the Teacher Salary Project to really put a focus on what teachers are getting paid as professionals, as opposed to other professionals, what we're required to do to become a teacher, the money, the expenses we need to forfeit or to provide in order to get our certifications, to get our degrees. And then on top of that, the hours we work outside of the normal 8:30 to 3:30, our contractual hours, what we put into this profession that no one seems to see. And I think I want to highlight that. I want people to understand. And sometimes, compensation is what we're fighting for. But I think equally as important is recognition that this is a profession, that we are professionals, and that, we would appreciate that people understand that and to treat us in a professional manner. And that's my only hope for the future. Once you start doing that and we start compensating our teachers fairly, other problems such as hiring a diverse workforce, right? Well, teaching starts to become a profession that is attractable. And so you get a more diverse pool of candidates who are attracted to come to teaching. So I think once we start looking at this as a prestigious profession and not one that, some people think that is easy for some reason, or that is a glorified babysitting kind of situation, which couldn't be further from the truth. Once we start treating our teachers like professionals, trusting their judgment, trusting their professionality, that's something that I want us to get back to. That's something that I hope for the future.
Do you have any advice for someone considering a career in education?
Yes, please come to education, right? We need the best, the brightest. We need people we need good fathers, good brothers. We need good mothers, good sisters. If you feel like you fit into this category, I tell you one thing, this is the most beautiful profession, because and I've done a lot of things in my life, from housing inspector to musician, but this is the only profession that I wake up in the morning wanting to go to and missing when I go home, and always thinking about this, right? And always thinking about my kids, because you make real world connections. Teaching, when you teach, you are responsible for what I believe is the world's most precious resource, which is our future. And, there is no feeling like seeing the multiple aha moments, not just academically from your kids, but when you see them grow into a better person, and knowing that you had some part that you played, and seeing them progress as a empathetic and compassionate person, there's just no better feeling in the world.
Angel, thank you so much for joining us today. You are absolutely incredible.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.